Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you for checking in with us, whether it's on the video side, the audio side. It is Tuesday, which means, as usual, I am joined by my good friend, noted hockey author, Maintenance Day podcast co-host, sports media personality, my man, Joe Yerdon. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Doing good, Pat. Doing good, man. It's been a wild weekend, honestly. With all the stuff, I got to go back to one of my old haunts from college days, hockey wise, anyways.
Syracuse, right?
Yeah, Syracuse. When I went to Oswego, we would go down for crunch games. Not all the time, but kind of regularly. Just just get together, have a bunch of friends, and go hang out and get some pretty good seats, and then just be heckling idiots basically for the whole game. And I had like one of my first big NHL media experiences in college there for a preseason game between the Lightning and Blue Jackets. Because
elaborate.
The Crunch were the Blue Jackets farm team at the time, which was kind of an odd pairing. But well, I mean, they used to be Vancouver's farm team, so that's even weirder. But it was Lightning and Blue Jackets, and the Crunch set us up with everything, and they were cool. And the Blue Jackets just weren't doing a whole lot of media stuff that day, but Tampa Bay just was kind of yeah, guys, go nuts, talk to whoever you want. We're like, cool, all right, awesome. So my buddy Dom and I, Dom's a sports director out of WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota now. So a couple of media, guys that became pros later on. We called the game. We just basically recorded play-by-play and whatever. We weren't doing anything live with it. We were just, there to do it and kind of justify our existence. But we interviewed John Tortorella before the game because he was coaching the Lightning at the time. And this is 2 seasons before they won the Stanley Cup in 2004. So there was a lot of guys on that team that either went on and carried on with that group or were not there much longer. But we got to interview Torts, and we were like, hey, Kevin Weeks was the backup goalie that night. Kevin Weeks, now with ESPN, was a goalie for a long time in the NHL. And they're like, yeah, come on down between periods. We're like, okay, cool. We'll talk to him in the hallway or something. No, brought us right into the locker room. We're like, is this okay? They're like, it's preseason. Who cares? It's great. So we interviewed him and saw Matthew Barnaby was playing for the Lightning at that time, and it was a guy in Columbus. He played for Syracuse his whole career. Well, I don't think he ever played in the NHL. But his name was David Ling, and he knee hit a rookie that in that game, a rookie named Brad Richards, and knee-on-kneed him. Richards was injured. Richards wasn't injured on the play. We took him out. We watched this. We're like, oh, geez, that's nasty. And then Barnaby just came out of nowhere and grabbed this dude and started pummeling him.
Yeah.
And and that was in the first period. So we're going down there to talk to Weeks between the periods, and Barnaby's getting he's in the training room or something like that. And he is just every curse word you can think of. He was saying them about that guy doing that hit. And I'm just like, oh boy, we're like, look out, man. We don't want to get caught in the whirlwind of this one, man, because this will be tough. But it was such a weird thing because a lot of the Lightning guys that were scratched for that game were just hanging out in the crowd. So our friend Brooke, who was she was our ringside reporter, she went and went over to him, was like, hey, who wants to come join us for a thing? And one of the guys volunteered. His name is Gordy Dwyer, who is a tough guy in the NHL. Went on to become, he's a junior coach now, I think. But yeah, it was just such a weird, awesome situation to be able to do all that stuff as a couple of college guys that were trying to figure out our chops and whatnot. But we got the full Torts experience though before the game, because we asked a couple of questions where he just did that whole Torts you guys are college guys, so I got to be nice to you, but if we were pros, it went off on us completely because I asked about this one guy that they drafted And he's just like, well, he's not here, so I don't care. And I'm like, sorry, man. And then my buddy asked about Vinny LeCavalier, who was waiting to get a contract done. So he's technically holding out or whatever. And Torts did the whole like, well, he's not here and I don't care about him. I only care about the guys that are here. And we're like, okay, John, sorry. Our bad.
Well, I don't know. It's not really funny, but so I've spent my whole life, minus 5 years of living in Florida. I've lived in this state my entire life. And I don't think I've ever been to Syracuse, man, other than driving through maybe to go, somewhere else. I don't think I've ever actually been in Syracuse before.
Never to the Dome?
No, I've never been to the Carrier Dome for a football game or a baseball game. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to a concert there. The New York State Fair used to be there.
Yep.
I don't think I ever went there for that, man. And nothing against Syracuse. I'm good with Syracuse. I just, for whatever reason, I just have never actually, I've never been there before.
I'll tell you this.
I didn't realize that now until we were discussing. I'm like, holy shit, I've actually I talk about Syracuse all the time. They're athletics, college teams, but yeah, man, I never realized it. I've never actually
the War Memorial where the Crunch play is a legendary place because they shot some of the stuff from Slapshot there.
Yeah, I knew that.
The movie was there. So, and like the building, it essentially looks exactly the same on the inside. New coats of paint and making it look nicer and all that. But it's still it's still an old building. Like it's right in the middle of downtown. I love old joints like that. Like it's great. Like the one end of the building is a stage. Looks like a giant high school auditorium. Really, it seats like however many thousand people. But that's a cool place to see a game. And like that night, man, Amerks fans brought it, man. Like they came out in force. It was as close to it might have been 60-40 Amerks fans to Crunch fans that night.
Oh, wow.
It was a big turnout, like a big turnout by Amerks fans, like to the point where they would, in warmups, they're putting Crunch guys, on the board, show them, skating and warmups, doing whatever. And they're just getting booed. So they started putting Amerks guys on the board just to keep the crowd quiet. It was something else, man. Like it was a hell of an atmosphere. AHL playoffs brings it big time. I know like some of the regular season games can be kind of a bummer because it might be like 2,500 people there and you're like, whatever. But
yeah, you're not feeling the energy during the regular
playoffs
season.
Are a whole different beast, especially like a winner go home game like that. That was a hot game. It was a hot game, man, and it was an overtime game, and Amerks came away with a win. So it was a good night for us to go cover a game.
Yeah, for sure. We might circle around back to that in a few minutes. So you had a fun weekend in Syracuse. I had a fun weekend. It was my birthday weekend, so I had a little shindig and I got to give a big shout out to him too, my man Vinny. And you've been there. We talked about this before. Casey's Black Rock Tavern, and over in Black Rock, kind of borderline. West side, right near Buff State campus. Big shout out to them. I had so much fun. I really did. When we get to be our age, Joe, I feel like we have like kind of like three groups of friends. I feel like you have your group of friends that you've become friends with as adults, and maybe you didn't know when you were growing up, but as an adult, you became friends with them. A couple buddies that you like to hang out, not people that you work with. I'm just talking about people that you've become friends with through the years. Some of you will go out and have a couple beers with or whatever. I call them new school friends, even though some of them, you've probably been friends with them for years. And then you have colleagues and peers that you work with that you've become friends with, through the years as well, that you'll do stuff outside of going to cover a game. You guys will meet up, have a good time. So those are kind of like your work buddies. And then you got your old school friends, man, the people that you grew up with, people you went to school with, grammar school, high school, so on and so forth. Your first friends, your first real friends. I had, and I was very lucky, man. I was so blessed too. Saturday, I kind of had like a nice little handful of all those represented. I go to one, it was kind of funny because you go to one area of the bar, and Casey's not the biggest bar, which, by the way, typical. We all drink too much fashion. So we had, there's a nice back room. They got a nice arcade. It's really nice back there. They got some video games. And Vinny worked out a deal because I wanted to hear 80s music. That was like my thing. At least going into the party, I'm like, please, all I give a shit about, I don't care about any private party. You don't need to be taped off any of that shit, man. All I care about is I want 80s music. I was feeling very nostalgic. It's kind of why I wanted to have my party at Casey's, because it's not far from where I grew up. So anyway, he puts on the Bluetooth speakers. All my friends were like, we're all drunks, man. We don't hang out in the back. We're all chilling near the bar, watching their sports games on TV and shit like that. So nobody even went in the back. We all just hung out and set up camp in the front with some of the, the locals, the regulars that were there as well. But anyway, one part of the bar, I got like Joe Miller from over at Buffalo Rumleys was there. Chrissy Kimmick, Mafia's Babes, a couple other friends like from that world of mine were there. And then I got, like I said, my new school friends that I've been friends with 10, 20 years that I do pretty much everything with now, guys that and girls that I became friends with as an adult. But the best part for me, my favorite part was seeing some friends that I went to school with. Some people that I've known for, I hate saying it publicly. I don't say it often. I'm 52 years old now, bro. So I some of these people I've been friends with for 35, 40 years.
Man.
And many of them, if you see them once every year, or once even every couple of years, that's kind of a lot. And it's not that you're not friends with these people anymore. It's just that life happens, you move to a certain area, you got things going on, they do. You just don't get together. So I don't know, man. It was an awesome time. Again, big thank you to Vinny for putting it together, taking good care of us, giving some good deals. The bartender was very attentive to us.
That's great.
It was a lot of fun, man. When you get to be older, I don't know. Do you feel yourself as you're aging, getting a little more nostalgic? I certainly am. I'm a sentimental dude. I'm like Ric Flair in a way. Ric Flair always cries every time you see him doing interviews or in the ring and shit like that. I'm kind of virgin on that point. I start thinking about memories and things like that, and thinking about Saturday and shit like that. I get very nostalgic, very emotional, man.
Yeah, I've started to become that way, really. Like this weekend, like this Saturday, I'm going to a wedding. I mean, that's one of my friends that's like local, new to here, that like I'm friends with, going to that wedding. But then next month in June, like somebody I've known for a long time, like we're talking 30 years, or maybe a little more, is getting married, going to a wedding there for that. So like that's a big deal. And like we had the bachelor jaunt a couple weeks ago, and of our group of 9, it was myself and my buddy John. We're both like, oh, we're the last 2 not married yet. We're like, all right. And while we were driving around, we're like, somebody came up with a great idea that would have been great to do that weekend, but to use Letterkenny as, I don't know if you watch Letterkenny before.
I do. I love that show.
So somebody mentioned like we should have made this the super soft bachelor party, and I'm like, oh man, what a great idea that would have been. And then I was like, wait, we got 2 guys left here that still might get married, and we're like, okay. They're like, okay, well, for whoever's next up is getting the super soft bachelor party. I'm like, shit, now it's a race. Now I got to get married because I want to have the super soft bachelor party. But like that's the kind of like dumb stuff you do with people you've been friends with for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, you just get together and just get kind of stupid, and it's just kind of like old times just happen again. It's maybe it's a little less stupid, maybe it's more stupid, who knows, but you get thinking about that stuff, and it's I don't necessarily get sentimental about it. I get more sentimental about like different family things and whatnot, but but like with friends, I don't know, man. Like that's like a good like a happy serotonin sort of moment where it's just kind of like, oh man, remember that? That was pretty fun. Where it's, but yeah, I mean, you get older, you're just gonna get sucked down into memory holes and just get thinking, and I mean, it's not never. It's maybe it's taking the good brain drugs now where I don't get sucked down into the really sad, bad stuff anymore. But it's but yeah, I don't know. I think it's inevitable. We just get to that spot.
There's nothing better to me that when you have a friend that you haven't seen or talked to in a while, and you just have that ability that when you get together with them, you're just able to kind of pick up right where things were. You know what I mean? Like it's like just like a seamless, effortless transition into whatever it is that you're talking about. And I've been married, dude. I've been married for over 20 years now, and love my wife, and we've had a lifetime worth of memories together. But there's just certain things that before I knew who she was, you know what I mean? I had a life before that, and it's just it's really nice just to be able to get together with friends, like I said, that you don't see often anymore, and just kind of reminisce, man. Take that stroll down memory lane. Of course, a couple shooters, a couple pints of Utica Club, and which I did, by the way, have a couple pints of Utica Club. But I couldn't resist. There's no way I was going to Casey's and not getting that cheap ass beer. So, man,
I'm wondering, because you've been married for 20 years. Do you have like that group of friends that, like, when you get together, she's just like, oh Jesus, here we go.
Nope.
Okay, keep it together, man. Like, just don't get stupid.
She's one of the boys.
Oh,
they like my friends cool. Like her more than me. And, you know what I mean? So, so that's actually never for me, at least, that's never been a problem. If anything, it's the other way around. I'm telling her, like, come on, man, relax a little bit. Let's chill here. I'm supposed to be the one getting stupid.
So she's doing the keg stands, and you're just like, honey, please.
No, she does. She keeps me in line. But like I said, whether it was older friends, newer friends, the friends that I've made over the last few years from the podcasting world, Twitter and stuff like that, it was awesome seeing them. And I'm not much of an advice giver, but seriously, if you're watching, you're listening to this, go back and reach out to somebody that you were friends with when you were kids that you kind of grew apart from, man. It feels really good to be able to reconnect with people. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. Again, big thank you to Vinny over at Casey's.
I'm really sorry I missed out on it, but
the
crunch, the Amerks made it possible, because I was going because I went and saw Game 4, and I was like, well, if they lose, it's done.
How dare you put hockey and work in front of my birthday? But I guess
I also blame the AHL, because like Game 4 was last Sunday, and then Game 5 was 6 days later on Saturday. I'm like, guys, come on, like, can we just get this done? Can we just get it over with? Nuking my weekend, like, come on.
Yeah. Now, typically, and I don't talk about wrestling much on this podcast. And when I do, I admit it, it's self-indulgent. And I know 99% of you guys watching and listening do not give a shit. But I got to tell you, so I didn't watch WWE Backlash was Saturday night. Did not watch it because I was having fun at the bar celebrating my birthday. I did on Sunday. I intended to go and just watch a couple of minutes of it, maybe a clip or two. And then I'm watching the whole thing on Sunday. I got to tell you, man, and you've been a wrestling fan for a long time. Generally speaking, Backlash has always been the pay-per-view after WrestleMania. That's kind of just like a bunch of rematches, basically, from WrestleMania. No new shit really goes on. And it's just like one of those whatever pay-per-view events each year. But I'm telling you, man, they were in Puerto Rico this year. First time in 18 years that WWE's had a premium live event in Puerto Rico. You saw Elimination Chamber in February, how hot the crowd was with Sami Zayn, just the whole night, that crowd. I'm telling you, and that was awesome in Montreal. I'm telling you, dude, this was even better on, Saturday night. I watched it Sunday. I'll pull up a real quick clip. Bad Bunny, as some people know, at least casual wrestling fans, maybe not, but Bad Bunny probably, in fact, he is the #1 streamed musical artist on this earth right now, in the world. And he's been a lifelong wrestling fan, and he is really good in the ring, too. Even just in that video, that crowd was bonkers for him. They were bonkers the whole night. They were into it like crazy. As Elena Vega got a huge standing ovation, her family was at ringside. She wrestled Rhea Ripley. Standing ovation afterwards, tears all over the place. She was crying her eyes out. It was awesome. What a great moment, by the way, for Damian Priest to be in that kind of spot. Good for him too. That was a great match. And in that match, and again, I know you missed it. They went all out too. Your usual suspects interfered. The Judgment Day and Rey Mysterio and LWO came out. But you know what else came out in the crowd? Oh, I've got to find this clip too.
Wait. You said LWO? LWO's back?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're not really watching wrestling all that much anymore. Man? I forgot that you're not really watching wrestling that much anymore. Oh. I'm trying to hold on one second. As we're talking, see if I can pull it up quick enough. Because I don't want to give it away. I'd rather show you. Where it's gonna be too late, man. All right. Anyway, Carlito came out and the crowd went. Carlito came running out to make the save. You know what I mean? When they were getting the Judgment Day was jumping him. He came out, and so did Savio Vega too. He was in the aisle. Shit. Yeah, so they pull up all the stops, man. It was a great card, a great night of wrestling. But at its best, wrestling is, Joe, I don't care if we're in the 40s, 50s, if you're a teenager or a little kid. Wrestling's at its best when it's just fun. When the crowd, the energy from the crowd can make a show so much more fun. And man, hats off to Puerto Rico. It was really really cool. If you get a chance, go back and watch it. Is that a hot take alarm going off on your end?
It is. I don't know.
You're not even talking. You don't get no hot take alarm.
It's crazy, man. They're zinging me anytime I'm doing stuff. It's
by the way, and by the way, this is a rare occasion where we tape. So we generally tape this, and that's what we're doing today, Monday afternoon for a Tuesday drop. Usually not missing too much, but kind of sucks taping this right now because the NHL lottery is tonight. So by the time people are listening to this, we're already going to know how that plays out. I'm a big Knicks fan. Huge must-win game 4 for the New York Knicks. Again, prefacing this by saying this is going to be old news because by the time people hear or watch this, we're already going to know. But if you could pick 1 or 2 teams where you would personally like to see Connor Bedard, who's obviously the main prize of this draft lottery, go to, if you could handpick 1 or 2 teams that you think would be a good fit for him, maybe him, or maybe a good fit for just that organization, or maybe for the league in whole. If you had your choice, like what are 1 or 2 spots that you'd like to see him go when this draft lottery comes tonight, which again, you'll know by tomorrow.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while because I've done I did a piece like a power rankings kind of thing for Bleacher Report about who deserves or who it's basically like who do I want to see him go to, which is
sure
exactly the kind of thing I want to do, or it's like my opinion matters the most. Everybody can,
of course,
chew on it. Yeah, looking at it like this, the lineup of teams, because now it's evenly split that 16 teams make the playoffs, 16 don't. But only the 11 worst can get
right
shot at number 1. Like the Sabres, if the Sabres win the lottery, they move up to 3, which would still be pretty cool.
2% chance of that happening too.
Yeah. Not much of a chance, but still a chance.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that to me that would be most interesting. I can't have it be Chicago. Get Chicago the hell. No. Chicago. You've had your moment in the sun, Chicago. Get the hell out of the way. And plus they were pretty really obvious about what their intentions were this season, what they were doing. I really would like to see him. I think Columbus would be fun. I mean, it doesn't make sense for media purposes. Like I'm not the right person to pick out a team for ratings purposes. Like, no,
sure,
absolutely not.
This is your preference,
right? I think Philly. I think Bedard and Philly would set everybody's hair on fire.
Yep. Because
people either, Flyers fans love the Flyers. Everybody else hates the Flyers, and they're they've been on the downswing here, and they got torts there, the whole thing. But Philly would be really fun. That would be a lot of fun to see them come away. Because some of these other teams, imagine if Washington gets them. Jesus, suddenly you go from they might not be, they might be out of the playoffs for a while here. It might be a bad run, and then Ovi's going to pass Gretzky's record in a year because he's got Bedard feeding him pucks. Like if Detroit finally, are they eligible? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Detroit's eligible.
Detroit's eligible. They got kind of hosed out of getting the number 1 pick a couple of years in a row because they weren't tanking bad. They were just bad. Mm-hmm. And the 1 year they ended up picking 4th. They were supposed to be number 1. They got picked 4th. That shit sucks, man. So if Detroit got it, that would again make everybody really mad because a lot of us still remember when Detroit was good. They haven't been good for 10 years now, roughly. Well, 7 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I think that would make people mad, but Philly would infuriate people. So would Montreal. Montreal getting them would be so obnoxious. It would be one of the most obnoxious things possible. Vancouver would be right up there too. But Montreal way, way more because Montreal's had some lottery luck last year. They picked Slafkovsky. They got a pretty good young core on the way up. Not as good as what Buffalo's got cooking right now, but they're like a player or two evolving from being kind of in the mix, not too soon afterwards. So that would be really interesting. But I don't know. I don't want to see him in Montreal because I would like to have the next, friggin' McDavid be in America. McDavid winding up in Edmonton was the worst of all possible outcomes, and it just sucks ass that he's still there. So I would like obviously the best thing is have him on the East Coast, have him with a high, with a kind of a high profile team. Philly really hits that target really hard. But as far as like franchises that need him, Columbus really needs him.
Sure.
Arizona really needs him. San Jose, I mean, San Jose had a lot of really good runs for years. They could really use them. Like those are teams where I'm kind of like, man, cut them a break. Like let's see if they can maybe get one. Anaheim was god awful this year. They had injuries, they had all sorts of stuff. But like Bedard playing with Zegras, Troy Terry, that'd be fun as hell. Like those guys doing circus act stuff every night on the ice. The only problem is they play out west. It's tough to stay up to 10:30 every night to watch a game. Like that's hard.
That's a big that's a big factor for me. It's a big factor,
Yeah.
at least anyway, man.
But yeah, just keep Chicago, keep Montreal out of it. Like that's those are my rooting preferences. Like St. Louis gets them. That'd be wild. But I mean, it's just like it doesn't hit for me. Like, maybe this is me being like boardroom guy, but like Philly would be the one that would be a perfect spot, but also deeply upsetting to very many people.
So I put out a tweet, and again, by the time people are watching or listening to this, you're already going to know. So this is all going to be a moot point. But it's funny you say Philly, because I put out a tweet and I power ranked my spots that I'd like to see him go. And I had Philly number 1. I had Philly 1, and I had Detroit 2. I did have Montreal 3, although I do agree with your point as you're making it about, you already got Connor McDavid in Canada. Do we really want, Bedard there as well? But my thought process was, and generally speaking, I think Sabres fans would rather just see him go out west. Whether it's Arizona, whether it's Anaheim, whether it's San Jose or whoever. I'm the opposite, man. I want to see great players play in Buffalo more often. I want to see the Sabres. I love when the Sabres play the Oilers. My son, who again, he's 20 years old, he is just starting to become a real fan. He's been a casual fan. He's starting to get into it a little bit more. But when Edmonton came to town late in this season, he sat there and he watched every second of that game, and he was into it. And in part, that's because of guys like Connor McDavid, who's a superstar. I want to watch the Sabres play these guys. So fuck that shit, man, about, going out to the West. I don't care if he goes to Philly and it creates a good rivalry or whatever. I want to see the guy play more. I want to see if it's Columbus, if it's Detroit, Chicago. So. But anyway, I just want to watch the guy
rivalry was, though, man. Like the Philly Buffalo rivalry, like all through the 90s and early 2000s was awesome. That would be an awesome rivalry.
I don't like Montreal. I don't like the organization, and I get why some people want them in America. Absolutely. But, the Sabres play in Montreal. What do they play? 5 times a year?
4.
Four times a year. My bad. 4. So to see them 4 times a year, twice a year in Buffalo, sign me up for that, man.
Yeah.
Any team that I could watch him play 4 times a year, 100% sign me up for. Take a quick break, or before we do, I should say 2 quick things. Number 1, not going to talk about it because I'd be fronting because I haven't followed them all year. But the Bandits, shout out to them. They crushed Rochester over the weekend. They're in the Eastern Finals now against Toronto. Game 1's in Buffalo on Friday. So congratulations to them. I know there's a lot of Bandits fans out there. It's a shame that there's not more podcasts out there to discuss them, and I'll point the finger right at myself and this show as well for not finding a way to talk about them more. But that's pretty cool for a lot of Buffalo fans here. And then quickly, I don't want to stick on this for too long because I do want to talk some actual Buffalo Sabres here after the break. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, so they get out of the first round, and they're just running. Florida's been like a buzzsaw. They're up 3-0. And look, sometimes stats, Joe, they can be misleading. But this speaks volumes right here. Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Nylander, Mitch Marner have combined for 0 goals. 4 star players, 3 games, 3 losses to Florida, 0 goals combined. Again, stats can be misleading at times, but this one kind of punches you in the face if you're a Toronto fan. I'm a Leafs hater, so it's still getting swept would be a nice consolation after them because them losing in the first round is always the most fun thing. Getting swept as the favorites would be a nice consolation prize, but Dude, I mean, what's your level of surprise right now that this is playing out like this? It's got to be pretty high.
It's stunning. Yeah, I you know, we've seen teams that have like that hump to get over in the playoffs, like, and it takes them forever to do it. And then when they finally get over it, like they get past like that barrier that's on in the road to a championship. They finally get past that, they just run. Like they run, they can't be stopped. They just win, and then it's they're celebrating at the end of it. We've seen it happen. We saw it happen with the Cubs. Saw it happen with the Red Sox. Saw it happen with a whole bunch of other teams in other sports where it was like they got that ape off their back, and they were like, "All right, we're good, we're gone." I was convinced this Leafs team was going to do that because it wears on you. Like the whole weight of the city.
Sure.
It's kind of the weight of Canada too. I mean, people like it's not that people in like Saskatoon are rooting for the Maple Leafs. They're not, but like the whole thing about, the cup hasn't been in Canada since 93, hasn't been won by a Canadian team since 93. Like that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
But man, like they're playing like they won the title in the first round. Like they're playing like a team that is just kind of like, all right, cool. We did it. We're done. Awesome. Like game 3 was a must-win game. You gotta win it. Like you win it or you're down 3-0. And the next game's, also on the road. And they played like crap. Just straight up bad. No urgency, no press, no anything. And like, they get the first goal and it was kind of like, cool. We got the lead. We're good. We've seen them do that 100 times. It feels like towards the end of the season. When Buffalo was up there late in the season, it was the same thing. Like they scored the first goal. They're like, all right, cool. We're done. And then the Sabres came back and kicked them in the teeth the rest of the game. Like it's amazing to see a team that's got that much talent on it just kind of stop. Like they just stop and they're just kind of like, oh, they're fighting back. Oh, I thought they were just going to roll over for us. Nobody rolls over in the playoffs. Well, Minnesota Wild kind of rolled over in the playoffs, but I mean, like Toronto is just playing horrible hockey, and now they're, now Samsonov got hurt last game. Joe Wall, third string goalie comes into play, and now it's Wall's a pretty good goalie. We saw him a lot with the Marlies this year, but like you're talking second round of the playoffs. You're trying to get to the conference finals. You're trying to win a cup. Dude, like you're down 3-0 now. Like none of your star guys are doing anything. Like even the fancy stats are not in their favor. It's not like they're doing stuff and they're not scoring, like just bad luck.
Right.
They're not doing shit. Mitch Marner has been horrible. And like it's not entirely on him. It's his line mates too, because they're not playing well either.
It's, I liken it in a way, and I don't know why the comparison came up to me, but it was like, for years when the Bulls couldn't get over the hump and beat the Pistons. I kind of liken that with the Leafs getting out of the first round of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like once the Bulls got through the Pistons, finally, they became unstoppable.
Yep.
So once Toronto finally got over that hump, beat Tampa, and got out of the first round, I was like, all right, well, this team, they might win the cup right now. Yep. But it's kind of like the Bulls if they beat the Pistons, but then they go get the shit kicked out of them by Utah or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
In the finals or even the next round before that. It's just crazy. From a Sabres perspective too, it's tough to not keep thinking over and over and over again. God damn, you're watching what Florida's doing. The Sabres were 2 points out of being in that spot. You can't say 1 because they would have lost the tiebreaker, but 2 points, and they're in that spot that Florida's in right now, maybe. But also, let's give a lot of credit to Florida because they beat Boston and they're on the verge of sweeping perhaps Toronto, certainly beating them in a series. So I don't know, man. It's been really fun and exciting. And again, as somebody who's not a Leafs fan, good.
I tell you what, though, like I love the way Florida's been playing. They've played with tenacity. They play with an edge and nasty to them. Like Tkachuk. I love Matt Tkachuk. He's a friggin' great player. Great player. Mm-hmm. I love that he makes other teams really mad. I love that he makes the fans mad. Like that's the kind of hockey fan I am. Guys that make people mad and are great at the game. Perfect. Like everybody here hates Brad Marchand. He's amazing. He's an amazing player. You hate him, but he's doing his job. And that's why you hate him. Like he does all that stuff that drives you crazy, but then he's going to score a couple goals and you're going to hate him even more. Like it's that kind of stuff. And the Panthers have got like, he's really good. Barkov's a great center. Sam Reinhart's been unbelievable
Yeah.
in these playoffs. Nobody wants to hear about it here. Everybody's just kind of like, hey, whatever. I think everybody made their peace with Sam. I think Jack's the one everybody's mad at. Nobody wants Jack to do well. Sam's a little bit of a different story because I think what got lost about Sam was that he wanted to sign a long-term deal here. He wanted to, and Bottrell never brought him one. Like, he was just like, nah, well, we gotta sign you to a bridge deal. Like, all right, man, and drag it out all summer long and wait till, couple days into training camp to finally get it done. Like, come on, really? Like, this guy says he wants to get a long-term deal done. You're not going to do it? Like, all right. And then it got to the point where it was like, well, the team's awful again, like for the second time while he's been here, and he's a UFA after the next season. You can't keep him. You got to trade him, and they did. Trade worked out pretty well for Buffalo. I mean, Devin Levi's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good player. And who did they get with the first? Oh, it's killing me. Well, I should have all this.
I think it was Kulik. It was Kulik, I believe.
Yeah, it was Kulik. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, Kulik might be a Saber next season. So, I mean,
which we're going to talk about in a minute.
We'll get into that. But, I mean, that's a perfectly great mutual trade. Honestly, Panthers get a guy that's a, sky high hockey IQ. The play he makes, the score and OT, Ekblad makes an unbelievable pass, and then Reinhart just has the wherewithal to pull up, wait for help to come in, and then start it going, and then he just tucks in the wraparound. Perfect. It's the little things like that you don't notice. Like the super smart high IQ hockey guys. You'll miss a lot of that stuff. You go back and watch the replay. Oh, wow, how did he know to do that? He saw it coming. He knows what's going on everywhere on the ice. It's too bad because I think Reinhart, the player, maybe not the personality, the player would have fit in great with this group. And it is what it is. It's all done. It's over with. But man, he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a player.
He is. And to your point quickly here about Reinhart and Sabres fans come to peace with just how things played out, in part because of the return that they got for him. And I don't think fans hated him. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs, maybe Boston, one of those two teams, certainly are the two teams that Sabres fans hate the most.
Mm-hmm.
Sabres fans are probably relishing right now Toronto being on the verge of being swept with Reinhart on Florida. I would venture to say that if Jack Eichel was a Florida Panther, that there would be a lot of Sabres fans that would actually root for Toronto to win this series, because that would be how badly they don't want to see Jack Eichel get anywhere near a Stanley Cup. Do you agree with that?
To a slight degree, I agree with it, but I think that turns into a rooting for the referees or rooting for a meteor to strike the arena type situation for Sabres fans. Like, if you force them to pick one of them, they're saying, no, I'm choosing to not choose because I don't want anybody to get any excitement out of this. Besides, Florida roster's got so many former Sabres on the team, just from the last couple of years, man. It's nuts. It's nuts, and it's so many guys where it's kind of like, wait, that guy's there? Oh shit, okay, that's weird. He's good now? Oh, that's messed up. All right, great, perfect. Brandon Montour, hello everybody.
Yep. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Plenty more with Joe Yerdon. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon from Maintenance Day Podcast. Also, of course, Noted Hockey and the Bleacher Report. Guys, make sure that you are, if you're watching this on the video side, that you subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, Apple. We're on all the platforms out there. All right, so I kind of want to get to two Sabre topics here. One of them you wrote in Noted Hockey, which again, by the way, go check it out. notedhockey.substack.com. Link in the show notes here. $5 per month, man. Can't go wrong. But anyway, Joe put out over the weekend an interesting article, I thought, about the team, the Sabres, growing a sustainable farm system. Lightning can strike anywhere at some point, but it looks like they're building a team that's going to be good for a while, and, discuss some of the young prospects that are, they're becoming, as you wrote, they're becoming better players right in front of our own eyes here. And you talked about Puerto and Quinn last year, and this year it's been Lucas Rusek and Yuri Kulik and Isaac Rosine. See, I'm saying his name right now. It's not Rosen anymore.
There.
I am getting better. this year. So, a lot of young talent on this team, a lot of sustainability, it seems, but you also wrote and kind of elaborate this on a little bit, some the leadership in the locker room and that mattering as well, instead of just, these young star players that even casual Sabre fans know about. But there's a lot of elements to go into building a farm system that's going to be good and sustainable for a while. So kind of just talk about what you wrote.
Yeah. So one of the things that sticks out about this crew is that it's very Sabre-like in how the guys all really like each other, which it's hard to get that kind of thing happening anywhere in sport. Never mind like in Buffalo and the Sabres organization, never mind that stuff, anywhere to get like everybody kind of be on the same page and everybody likes each other and everything's good. And of course, with the clarifier that winning always makes everybody happy.
Sure.
But this is a crew where everybody just seems to support each other really well. And it starts with the veteran guys. And even in Rochester's case, it's the coaches. I didn't talk about the assistant coaches, but I mean, having Michael Pekka and Mike Weber goes a long way because those guys aren't very far removed from their own careers. So they're able to kind of identify and help out with a lot of those things. But it's guys that, either won't wind up in Buffalo or it might take a lot of things happening for them to wind up in Buffalo to be able to be players with the Sabres. But, it's guys like the captain, Michael Mersch, like it's been basically a career AHL guy. He got a handful of games with the Kings years ago. But just a good dude, like he's been through it. He's seen it all in the minor league road. So, having a guy like that to kind of bounce things off of, and he's 30, like not old, like he's 29, 30 years old. So he's able to kind of, fall in with some of these guys that are, in Kulik's case, he's 18, well, 19 now, but he just turned 19. Like, with him, with Rusek, he's 20, 21, 20, 22, something like that. Roseanne's also very young. Like, it's having a constant stream of those guys around to be able to kind of ground things and make everybody feel comfortable. Because I remember, in previous iterations of the Amerks, you'd have some younger players down there, but you'd have veterans around them that were not really there to support younger teammates. They were there because they were getting paid a lot of money because they thought they were going to get NHL jobs, didn't, and then they were just kind of like, great, we're here. Neat. Like, cool, I'm in Rochester. Like, bad enough I signed with the Sabres. I'm in Rochester.
I'm not even on the main roster. I'm on the farm team for the stinky Sabres.
Yeah. So it's not having guys like that around that are, and there's some guys that have like the old school mindset of, where, you got to make a rookie's life miserable or you got to make the young guys miserable because that's how it was for them. All that stuff's gone with these guys. I mean, you Mersch, Malcolm Subban. Malcolm Subban might be one of the most fun, nicest guys in the world, which is probably not hard to recognize because of his brother PK. I mean, PK just seems like he's a party everywhere he goes, but Malcolm's a little bit more grounded and he's just a good dude. Michael Hauser's a great dude, a backup goalie. These are like great guys to have around with this group because you need to have that kind of, it's more hands-on stuff because the games are on the weekend. So you're spending a lot of time during the week in practices. And it's a lot of downtime in between games because it's just the way the schedule goes. But like those guys, you think of Lawrence Pilot's another one. Like he's young still too, but he's been around. Like he's been in the NHL, he's been in the KHL, like he's been around the bend. But it's Mersch, it's Ethan Prow, who we saw get a couple games here with the Sabres a couple years ago. Guys like out of that role that just provided. Sean Malone might have the most bad luck of anybody on the Amerks roster because there's been a few situations in like the last year or so where if he was healthy, he would have played in Buffalo. Didn't work out for him, but he's another guy that's like trying, he's sticking with it. He still plays hard, plays a really solid two-way game. Maybe he'll get those games in the future with Buffalo, but you got to have the good luck, but it doesn't deter him from what he's doing. Like he just does his job, leads the way, and he's even closer in age to some of these young guys too. And it's having guys like that help bring along these guys. And these are guys that might be in Rochester for longer than just 1 year. These are guys that might be around in the organization for a while. And it helps bring these new guys along, because next year they're, maybe Roseanne's still there, maybe Rusek is, kind of in between, but you're going to be adding like 2, 3, 4 guys right now that I know are going to be in Rochester next season. Like you need to have those kinds of guys around all the time, because you need to have that positive influence with them and help them along. And the coaching staff goes a long way to that, but having like those vets around to kind of keep things in check is really good.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good article. It was a good read. And yeah, I kind of never really thought of it in those terms before. You think minor leagues, you just think of young guys who are, sharpening their skills, holding their craft a little bit, waiting their opportunity. Or in some cases, some of the veterans are hoping for another crack. But you learn that having that leadership, having the right character in a minor league locker room is really important. Besides, obviously, good coaching, but having some veteran players in that locker room is really good for the young prospects, and helps nurture and develop them more. It was a good read, man. And then kind of circling to how I feel like the Sabres, the path to the roster. Let's just call it the path to the roster next year. You look at this team right now as it is, and again, we're going to have plenty of time throughout the summer.
Wait.
Well, what? Oh, I was going to say.
No, I was saying, we'll have a lot of time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, coming up, there'll be some trade. Well, there's going to be trades, maybe not Sabres involved, but the trades, free agency. So there's going to be opportunities to add players. But you look at this roster as is constructed right now. And I think on the forward side, your top 2 lines are pretty much set. I don't think there's any debate in that. I think Casey Middlestat, whether he's a winger or center, he's going to be anchoring that third line. It certainly looks like. Peyton Krebs looked good on that fourth line. I would say he's pretty much a live. Plus, he's a young kid. He's a lock. So there goes your forwards. You probably got Greenway because they traded for him, gave up a decent amount. He's somewhere in that bottom 6. Throw him wherever you want. This isn't about who's on the third or who's the fourth line. We're just talking about the roster right now. So you can add Greenway for sure. Maybe you add one of between Okposo or Girgensons. I mean, bringing them both back is probably, it's a possibility. I don't know how likely it is. Maybe Joust, he's a restricted free agent.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. Let's start with the forwards, I guess. So if you got 2 full lines set and you got Middlestat and Krebs, that gives you 4 openings, maybe 5 if you want to have an extra forward. So again, Greenway takes away one of those. Okposo and Girgensons. I feel like you got maybe 2 forward spots for 2 forwards to join this team, whether it's Kulik or somebody from Rochester, whether it's a free agent, whether it's a trade. Does that sound about right? Like maybe 2 to 3 forwards you got room for, new ones?
Yeah, we were talking about this, myself, Lance, Bill Hoppy, and Heather Engel. We rode out to Syracuse. So this was one of the conversations we were having was, who's, what spots are going to be there to be had. And we we're breaking it down. And, again, we settled that, top line is square. Second line basically square.
Sure.
And then we're like, okay, well, what happens with Pozo and Girgensons? And they love both guys. I don't see any way Pozo doesn't come back. I'm pretty much banking on him getting a 1-year contract for $2 million or something like that. He'll come back. He'll get to play his 1,000th game here. Like, he'll still get to be a leader within the room. The whole thing. Like,
probably still at where C too, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not totally sure about that. I mean, and it's not to knock on him, but like he'll absolutely be.
He'll be in that leadership group.
Absolutely. Sure. Whether he's wearing the letter or not, it doesn't matter. The letter thing is, I don't know. It's a big discussion point. It's a big deal, but it's a bigger deal to make sure you have the right person wearing the letter to be the kind of, the representative, the guy after the bad losses that has the right words to say. Kyle's absolutely that guy. He's been great at that role, but maybe it'll be a thing where he's can like pull it back and be like, all right, these young guys are ready. This is their team now. Like, they can take it over. So sure. they should have one of the best of them take it by the reins and go with it. We'll see. We'll see. Gergensons, I don't know. I keep coming back to Gergensons because he's the kind of guy you want to have in the playoffs. Like he's the exact. We've been saying this for years about him. Like you get to the playoffs, that dude's going to eat, and haven't done it yet. But he's still a solid defensive forward. But I wonder if I do wonder if maybe he wants to stick around, or if it's or maybe they have a different idea of what's going to happen. That's why I think the acquisition of Greenway foggies that up a little bit, because he kind of seems like the guy that would take that spot because because he is big, he can play, he can defend, he is physical, like he does all those things. But they have him signed for what, 2 more years?
Yeah.
You kind of, you're kind of there with that. And I think if you're re-signing Zemgus, you're probably doing another 2-year deal with him, more than likely. But then it's like, all right, are you just gonna have him fight with Greenway for ice time because you want to get Yuri Kulik into the mix? Because I'm convinced Kulik's going to be on the Sabres next year. Kulik or Rusek, maybe both, but I think it's really hard for both to do it. I think they'll give Rusek a really long look because I think they like him. He's a good player. He's a really good player. But just looking at that fourth line, like the fourth line group there, like just those two guys, I don't know which way that's going to break. I'm 95% sure Opozo is going to come back. I'm not so sure about Gergensons, but
it takes 2 to tango, right, Joe? I mean, it's not like Gergensons will have zero interest around the league, and it's whether you come to the Sabres or you're not really going anywhere. There might be teams that want that scrappy fourth liner who could eat, like you said, in the playoffs. So there might be some demand in the market for Gergensons. It's a two-way street here.
Definitely. I think he's a guy that fits, like, for a team that's looking to kind of round out a bottom six that thinks like, we could use a little help in this area.
Mm-hmm.
That's an area that, given how offensive the league is now, having a guy that can go get around and hit and play solid defense, get in forecheck, do all those grit and grind things that coaches love. He does them, and he does them without a second thought. He's like, that's the job. He's going to go do it, which is, like I said, coaches love guys like that. But it's that third line that gets a little curious because maybe this is just the vibe feeling from, the way the season ended for him or how things went, but it really feels like Victor Olofsson maybe has played his last game as a Sabre.
I didn't even mention him.
Yeah.
That's really weird you say that. And you're right, 100%. It's a great point that you bring up. It's like, I didn't even mention him about guys that are, sticking around or this and that. I almost feel like it's a foregone conclusion he's going to get moved. It is weird, isn't it? Because this guy scored 27 goals.
28 goals. 28
goals.
Scored a career high of goals.
And I've already written him off as somebody who they're going to deal. I just feel that in my bones. But anyway, that's a good point you bring up.
So, 28 goals ain't nothing to sneeze at. And people would be, empty netters. Man, everybody scores empty netters. Like, goal scorers score empty net goals. That's what they do, man. But it's so, because this was the progression we saw for him coming. Like, get him a full season, get him in like an 82 game season. Let's see what he can do. Last year he played with with an injury, somewhere in his wrist that kind of sapped his shot for like 20, 30 games. It felt like, and that took away from him. But 28 goals ain't nothing, man. And it was 7 were on the power play. He's still a power play weapon. He still has that shot, but it feels like he's a luxury piece for what the Sabres are building right now and what they're going with. He's the kind of guy that fits in with a playoff team that, that has a power play that's rough. You look, you find a league or a team that, or a poor, not as good team that just needs scoring, period. And he can go fill that role. I think the worry is that the 5-on-5 play might stick out really bad. So it could be an issue for maybe trading him or whatever. But he was a minus 20, whatever it was, minus 23 this season, which plus minus is whatever, but that's still kind of bad.
Yeah.
Still pretty bad. But, the easy, quote unquote, easy thing for anybody, analyzing this is saying if you trade Olofsson, there's your Kulik spot right there, which Yeah, probably.
So you play with Middlestat, right? I can certainly envision him playing with Middlestat on that third line. No,
him with Casey and
maybe
I know I'm
somebody
forgetting
new.
somebody. Yeah,
maybe
could be
somebody new.
somebody new.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Tyson Jost. I don't know. I know Jost really wants to come back. He made that very apparent to Don and Kevin. So he really wants to be back in. But yeah, I don't know.
Let me ask you a question, Joe. Let's go ahead and let's put Kulik on this roster, and also let's trade Olofsson. All right. So
Mhm.
let's just swap them. And I said you got your top 6. You got Middlestat. You got Krebs. That's immediately 8. Kulik would be 9. Let's say you bring back Okposo and you lose Gergensons. That would be 10.
Mhm.
Greenway would be 11. There, you're talking maybe not counting Kulik, maybe just one spot where you're going to add a forward that's not on this roster right now. Whether that's a Rusek, whether that's a trade, whether that's a free agent, kind of feels about right. Yeah, maybe one new forward, not counting Kulik. So if you want to count Kulik, you're looking at probably at least 2 forwards. Sounds about right, correct?
No, it sounds right. And plus, Adams, he said he doesn't want to block anybody's path to the NHL. Like he said that at the end of the season, like he just doesn't want to keep guys down just because it's a numbers game. Like they just don't want to do that. And it makes sense because imagine if there was any player that was blocking the path of Jack Quinn this year. People would be screaming to get that guy off the team. Just like, get him out of here. Quinn would be scoring, 2 goals a night in the AHL and people would be losing their mind, rightfully so. Kulik, Jesus, we're talking about a guy who scored over 20 goals as an 18-year-old in a very mature AHL league. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of action and a lot of goals from somebody who probably shouldn't be having that. Players that age don't usually have that kind of success in the AHL just because, they're usually coming from Europe. So it's a whole new setup. It's a whole new thing. But for him, it was just natural. And it took him till about Christmas to pick it up. Same amount of time it took all these other guys that lit it up in Rochester. Took them like 2 months to adjust, 2.5 months to adjust. And then once they got it, they were gone. Like they took off with it and ran. So, Olofsson had the same path. Like he struggled his first couple of months when he came over, blew up and scored 30. Granted, he was older. He wasn't 18 doing that, but it's a good problem to have. Like they don't want to be super young, but Kulik plays like he's 23 already. There's still some immaturity there. Like he even said he doesn't like to play defense. Like I get it, man. Like nobody likes to play defense. It's that's the hard part of the game. It's not the fun part. You don't score goals playing defense. But like with him, Roseanne's another one, man. Like Roseanne's got some high-end skill, high-end smarts there where like he made very heads-up play to set up Tyson Kozak for the first goal against Syracuse in Game 5. He's been doing that kind of stuff all season. They hammered him that entire series. Syracuse has some big physical guys. They hammered on him all series and he just kept going. Didn't let it phase him, didn't cause him to get intimidated. He just was like, forget it, I'm just going to keep going, keep playing. He's a good player, but I don't know how you fit him in. It's a nice, like I said, it's a nice problem to have.
I feel like when it comes to the forwards, I don't think they're going to go out and they're not going to add too much because I think they already like what they got. And we didn't even mention guys the next wave that'll be there at some point, like Savoy and Oslin as well. Defensive side, maybe the defensive pairings, maybe a little bit of a different story. Your top 4 is pretty much set. Although when I say top 4, I'm just including Jokiharju. I don't know if necessarily if you go on and get another defenseman, maybe he becomes your third line defenseman. But I'm just saying your 4 defensemen seem pretty set. And they do have Stillman and Lyubushkin both under contract for next year. So neither are free agents. Do you still see a path where they add at least one for sure? Probably defenseman, new defenseman, maybe even 2.
Yeah, I think the plan is going to be to find Owen Power's partner. To me, I think Jokiharju's done all right in that role. I think he's a better fit as on a third pair defense with Stillman, Lyubushkin, whoever, either one of those guys. I think that's a better fit because there's a lot of how he played with Power that I think took away from Power. There was a lot of help there too. Don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot of things he did good for him, but the negative things stuck out really bad to me. Like there was a lot of times where Owen's looking around like, where the hell's Henry? Well, oh, he's right here next to me. Okay, that's bad. I don't. Oh, he's on my side of the ice. Am I on the wrong side of the ice? Oh no. Henry just wandered over here. Okay, well, I better mind the store. Little things like that.
Sure.
I like the way Henry plays. I don't see them like. I mean, I guess you could include Henry in a trade to get the right partner for him, but I don't necessarily think they want to do that. I think they like Henry quite a bit, but that's where like maybe some of those prospects, the forward prospects, because you have a stacked up pipeline. I think that's where you use one of those guys, maybe two to land that second pair. You're basically talking about a number one pair and a number 1A pair, because Power's line is not going to be playing like 15 minutes a game. They're also going to play 20 plus minutes a night with Dahlin and Samuelsson. Like that is just the way that's going to be. So you want to have somebody that is up to par with that amount of ice time and the responsibility parts and being able to play it well. I think that's going to be the biggest area they're going to go after. I know goaltending, everybody's going to scream goaltending. I know. But defense is I think finding Power's partner is the actual really big one, because that solves a lot of the back end issues, because if your defense is solid and square and you're set back there, it takes care of itself. It makes the goalies happy, the goalies trust it, and then everything kind of goes from there. But yeah, I mean, we've already seen them use a draft pick or a prospect to land, a player to use. They traded Jeremy Bloom. What was that for? Was that for Stillman or was that for Greenway? Or was that for some other I forget. Either way, Adam showed that he's not against using a prospect that it's like, well, the path is really clogged up for him. Let's put this to use. So that's where, like, I look at center and I'm like, man, center looks awfully stacked up. And that's where I think Middlestat playing wing and being really good on the wing helps out immensely, because that opens up a spot up the middle for maybe Savoy, maybe Östlund at some point. Although Östlund, I think it's going to take a little bit more time for him. And you're just like you clear up that spot, and then you're like, okay, well, where's the path for this guy? Where's Rosane going to fit in with this group? Do we see an area for him? That's where I think a lot of if you want to be somebody who predicts trades, I think those are the spots to look at, but good luck picking the guys. Good luck picking the guys out that you think are going to be the most, are the ones that they would want to use in a trade.
Yeah. I feel like two interesting talking points have been set up here with the segment for future weeks. One, I'd like to spend some time, maybe next week even, talking about potential Sabres captain candidates if it doesn't end up being, Kyle Okposo. And then also get your take. Maybe we'll go around the league or something and try to seek out a couple potential great fits for having somebody to play with Owen Power. So good talking points there. Real quick, before we get to our last segment here, I'm going to be talking plenty of Buffalo Bills football with Aaron Quinn from Cover One on tomorrow's show. Real quick though, so this is the week that the NFL schedule finally comes out. You're a Detroit Lions fan, of course. Are you rooting for as many? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you rooting for as many Sunday 1 p.m. games as possible, or are you cool with seeing the Detroit Lions in some primetime action this year?
The only primetime game I want them in is Thanksgiving, and that's at 12:30 in the afternoon. That's the one thing I like. I can set my watch to, is that they're playing at 12:30 on the third Thursday of November. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that I like to see. I know they're going to get probably some garbage Thursday night game or some.
I could see two primetime games. I've sensed a Thursday night game and a Monday night game. Yeah, I see them being that kind of team right now.
I think that the way their season ended put them on the map a little bit. Because they were so close to the playoffs, and
Sure,
they've got some upward buzz to them. Hutchinson, people love Hutchinson. They had the Hard Knocks thing last season, so everybody kind of got to know some of these guys. But yeah, they'll probably get some other garbage Thursday night game. Like if they play can't use Jacksonville as a reference anymore, but maybe they play like the Colts or something and just be like, here's some filler for the air. Watch Lions Colts on a Thursday night. And everybody shuts off their TV, but. But I mean, they almost always get put in that sacrificial lamb spot against some like monster team for a Monday night because they want that monster team to have a big game and have lots of highlights.
Your mom and dad Lions no more though, man.
I know, but proof's in the pudding, man. Like they gotta talk's cheap. Talk's always very cheap in Detroit. So,
but your team, your team. I think your team. Give me 17 or 16. Sunday 1 p.m. games. If you had your way, that's what you would prefer.
It gets to 4:00 on a Sunday. I'm checked out already. Like I've already spent 3 hours keeping up on football. Like, I'm just kind of like, that's enough. Yeah. I mean, if they're playing at 4:00, I have to find a way to ignore the first 3 hours of games, but it's impossible because there's like 9 games going on at the same time. So it's can't do it. So yeah, Sunday at 1, it's perfect. I know it's a thing in Buffalo where people are like, oh, it's Sunday at 1, Bills are playing no matter what, and it's like, isn't that kind of cool? Isn't that nice? Like you get to plan your day perfect. Like you still have a nighttime if you want. Like I don't know.
I sound like a broken record because if I had my way, the Bills would play 17 times at 1 p.m. on Sunday. I know that's not going to happen. They're a popular team. They're going to have 3 to 5 primetime games this year. I absolutely guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Plus, they're playing in London, so the schedule comes out Thursday.
Well, there's a 9 a.m. game for you.
Yeah, which I'm going to get to, which I don't like for a specific reason. I'm going to tell you why. Well, there's a reason why I don't like them playing in London, but I have a specific reason why I don't like this either. But when the schedule comes out, for the most part, people will bitch. Well, you already know you're going to play. You know where you're playing if it's home and away. It does still matter, though. Some teams come out looking well with their schedule, and some teams get screwed a little bit, man. Mm-hmm. What matters is, are you playing teams that are coming off buys with extra rest? Are you playing teams on short weeks? So there are circumstances where the schedule matters for the Bills. And again, as of right now, we don't know anything except there's one significant leak that I'm bringing up right now with the Bills. They are going to very likely, I can't think of all the details off the top of my head. I don't have anything written down, but long story short, the stadium where they're playing in London has their events tickets are on sale, and it had it listed for the Bills playing there on October 8th, which would be week 5, 9:30 a.m. Sunday. Again, we all know the Bills are playing in London this year.
Yeah,
we didn't know the date. It sure sounds like they're playing April 8th, and I absolutely hate it. And I'm gonna tell you why. The biggest reason why I hate it is because after you play in London, you're going to get a bye. I don't like the Bills having a bye in week 6.
Week 6,
that's too early. Mm-hmm. So that means the Bills are playing one of, if not the first overseas game of the season. Well, certainly one of the earlier ones for sure, which means they're going to be getting an early bye. We saw last year, the injury just really took their toll. As a fan of a team, and I'm sure you'd feel the same way about Detroit, give me a bye in week like 10, 11, 12. Somewhere around that time where later in the year, get a chance to mend a little bit. That's too early for me for a bye. So that's the only thing, the only news that's come out of anything Bills related for sure when it comes to the schedule. It sure sounds like it's true. So it sounds like the Bills are going to play in week 5 in London against we don't know who. And then they'll have a bye after.
Man. Like that's the rest of the season is such a grind. You're talking 12 straight weeks at that point of games like that. And it's going to be games all over the map, Mondays, Thursdays, Sunday nights, whatever. I'm with you. I would not feel great about that because we all saw what happened last year with the injuries. And sometimes you just need a week to just get a breather, maybe, catch a break, you lose one fewer game for a guy. Like,
if I'm
12 weeks is a meat grinder.
It is a very big meat grinder. I guess if I am a homer, or if I'm taking a homer point of view, I would say, all right, well, Von Miller might not be back till around then. So you got to buy a week earlier. So that's one less game that he would actually have to miss if he's going to be back, say, maybe 2 months into the season. It's one less game where you won't have Von Miller on the field. And we all know what an important part of that defense he is. But anyway, like I said, I'll talk plenty of football tomorrow with Aaron on the show. Last segment here, debuting a new segment, actually. Calling it Make Me Choose. And it's simple as pie, Joe. I'm going to give you 2 choices. And all you're going to do is tell me your personal preference.
Okay.
Might be sports, might be music, might be food. We're going to do this every week at the end of the show.
Okay.
I got 6 for you this week.
6. All right.
Sometimes there'll be more, seeing what we got in front of us for the show. And again, not a lot of like deep thought. We're not going to, take no deep dive into these. I'm just going to throw 2 things at you, man. 2 things that I think are certainly comparable. And then you're just going to give me what your personal preference is. Simple enough, folks. Let's get started. This one might be the hardest of the 6 that I have for this week. Going back, not MJ versus LeBron, but it's going to be that kind of deal.
Okay.
With this. I'm going to go because they were such great players and I love them both so much. Make it hard for you right out the bat. Bird versus Magic. And that's how it's going to be all these. So just so you know, Bird versus Magic. Give me one.
I grew up in a Bird house. My dad's a Celtics fan. I can't go against Bird. Bird was cutthroat, man. So was Magic. Bird was friggin' cutthroat. And I think you could put Bird in the current NBA now, and he would not be seamless, but he'd be pretty close to it, just because he can shoot. Because he shoot threes like crazy. Not to say that Magic would be bad. Magic would not be bad.
No.
Magic was like ahead of his time, being a 6'9" point guard. That's ahead of its time. But
I agree with you.
I think I gotta go with Bird. That's a real toss up, man.
I told you I was going to come hard with the very first one. I'm with you, man. I'm Bird. I'm Team Bird. I love Magic Johnson too, man. He was so much Lakers Showtime, so much fun to watch them as a team. Larry Bird just did some crazy shit on the court, man. He would talk shit too, and I loved it.
That's the thing at learning about later on in life, that Bird was a incredible shit talker. It's like, wow. Like the stuff about him at the 3-point contest, walking in the locker room is like, all right, which one of you is finishing second? Like, oh, shit. Okay. And then it wasn't empty shit talking. He backed it up every time. I would love a book of just all the stories of Bird talking garbage at people and then just following it up perfect.
And I want to throw this out there for everybody who's watching or listening to. Sometimes when we do these segments, especially if there are questions that I think might require some kind of retrospective of thinking, I'll let Joe know ahead of time what these questions are going to be. But these kind of rapid fire things, Joe doesn't know these. So it's not like he's had time to think on these. These are literally, he's airing them the same time that you are. All right, number 2. And I know you're not a big fan of either of these places, but you got to pick one, man. You got to choose one. McDonald's versus Burger King.
McDonald's. Yeah. I think that's an easy call. I'm not a big fast food burger guy.
I know you're not.
Honestly. But man, what do I get a craving for is what that comes down to. And sometimes I get a craving for like nuggets and fries or something. And I'm just kind of like, it'd be nice to get some of that. Yeah. And then you just go and do it. Scratches an itch, takes care of business. Easy call. That's an easy call for McDonald's.
All right. That one was easy. I would roll with McDonald's too, even though I kind of like Burger King hamburgers.
I'm not knocking BK. BK's got some good stuff, but
right. I agree with you. All right. Different eras here, but top of the world female musicians at their times anyway. Beyonce versus Janet Jackson.
Ooh. No, it's Beyonce.
Not easy.
Beyonce's a monster. She's just, everything she does is like out of control good. There's a lot of Janet stuff where I was like, hard pass.
That's fair.
Now mind you, Rhythm Nation is an unbelievable album. Like that's a great album. But it's Beyonce. Beyonce has way more catchier beats with a lot of her stuff, and that even ties in with like Destiny's Child. Like there's so much stuff. Yeah, no, Beyonce.
Yeah, and she's the bigger star too. I agree. I'm 3 for 3 with agreeing you here. love me some Janet, and I don't mean to disrespect her because she's an icon, but if you're not even the best performer in your own family, it's hard to pick someone over Beyonce.
Okay. All right,
which is kind of an unfair thing to say. I admit that. That's
like the argument when people like for Tim Raines for the Baseball Hall of Fame, there's like, well, he wasn't the best leadoff hitter of his time. It's like he's against Ricky Henderson, one of the greast players of all time. Like saying
Giorgiotti's not even the best player on the Oilers. You know what I mean?
Right. Or Mark Messier wasn't the best. He wasn't so good on the Oilers. Wayne Gretzky was. No shit, really? No kidding. Like,
that's fair. Shitty take by me.
You can't compare to the ultimate pop star, Michael Jackson. Oh, she wasn't as good as Michael. Now, if she wasn't as good as Tito or Jermaine, then okay, then all right, then that's a hard call, or LaToya or something. Like it's comparing her to Michael, man. Like that.
I retract my statement. No, everyone watching and listening, you never heard that. I retract it. All right, 3 more here. This might be harder for me than I think it is for you, but Cheers versus Seinfeld, 2 NBC powerhouse shows, one from the 80s, one from the 90s. Cheers versus Seinfeld.
God, this is truly impossible.
These are meant to be hard, by the way. If I'm doing my job, that means that these weren't easy ones.
Jesus, yeah, this sucks. I'm going Seinfeld just because I keep quoting Seinfeld all the time, and maybe it's just because it's more recent, and I'll go back and watch Seinfeld episodes more often than Cheers. Yeah, there was a summer a few years ago where Cheers was on Netflix. I was like, I'm watching it beginning to end.
Yeah, I did that
first
too,
season to the very end, and I remember at the time thinking, right with the Sam Diane thing, right when it came to a head, and I was like at the point, I'm like, dude, cut it out, just get it over with already, just end this story. And then it was the end of that season. I'm like, I hope that was the end of that, and it was. And I was like, oh, thank God. And, it was like a huge sigh of relief. And then the Kirstie Alley years came in, and it was like, oh Jesus, okay, this is still had its fastball. I know Cheers was on longer. Cheers has way more episodes. But Seinfeld's still like in my vocabulary. Like
sure.
That's the part that gets me. Like there's still some Cheers stuff that like stands out as funny. Cheers might be the funnier one overall, like as a total, but Seinfeld just sticks.
Yeah, look, man, it's a tough call. I feel like if you're our age and you grew up watching both shows while they were on and while they were hot, it's a tough decision. I feel like if you're younger and you're going back and you're trying to watch shows that you were too young to see, I think Seinfeld would blow them away. I don't even think it would be close because Seinfeld, I feel like, is more pop culture, socially relevant today. But again, if you watch them both during their heights, I would say it's a tough call. For me, I actually probably would say Cheers. But again, you go back and you watch them now and it's close. I think Cheers is severely outdated. Like in today's world, where Seinfeld would still be a little more relevant. I mean, Cheers is pretty much a weekly sexual harassment case against Carla, somebody, every time, laughing.
Or Sam, or both. Yeah.
Right. Or Sam. Exactly. It was a much different world. Let's just put it that way when Cheers aired in the 80s. I love both shows, obviously. I would lean a little bit towards Cheers personally. That's just me.
I think that's because the age you were when Cheers was going was the same age I was when Seinfeld was going. So it's like right in that prime, like late, like teenage years where you're really watching like whatever's like the fun shows were, and like you just you get sucked into it. Like so like I just think like the last season of Seinfeld was like what, my freshman year of college, sophomore year of college, I forget. So it's like that whole show was like all through high school for me. So it was just wheelhouse.
Yeah. All right, 2 more here. This one is probably one of the most asked and probably one of the most difficult questions that certainly you'll get on this segment. Just overall, one of the hardest musical questions to choose from ever. Going back to an era that I know you're a big fan of as well. Pearl Jam versus Nirvana.
Ooh.
You gotta make me choose the name of the segment. So you got to choose one. Pearl Jam versus Nirvana. It's a hard one for most people. Maybe it's not for you. It seems like it is right here.
Yeah, this is it's not as tough for me. I love Nirvana, and I love like how it established that whole scene. Love that. But Pearl Jam for me is the way more lasting one. And it's not just because they're still making albums now. Like their last few albums, like I have them, I listen to them and I'm like, yeah, it's fine. But like their prime stuff, like their first 4 or 5 albums are like constant rotation for me. Like, I mean, it's evident by you turn on a classic rock station, you hear the same songs all the time. You hear Blackie, you hear Jeremy, you hear, all that stuff live. Like you hear it constantly. But those first few albums just really stuck with me. If you broke it down, like certain albums versus certain albums, that's when it gets hard for me. Like if you compared and second albums, you compared Verses to In Utero, I'd have to walk away for an hour to really think it over and to really go over it because those were like, me walking to pick up the bus for school album, like on a cassette in the Walkman. No, I'm not 900 years old, but like that's, I didn't get a Discman for a while, but like those tapes got worn out.
Sure.
Big time. Like, I mean, absolutely ruined those two. And then like the Downward Spiral, like all those Core by Stonewall Pipe, like all those albums had them on cassette and I just wore them the hell out. But yeah, if you want to get really mean, you start breaking them down album versus album and I'll die every week.
I would go Pearl Jam as well. I do feel like if I were to put a poll up on Twitter asking the same question, I bet you it would be 55% to the winner, like maybe 55-45. I think it would be pretty close. I think there's a lot of people out there who would pick Nirvana, not you and I, apparently.
That's a poll worth doing. I think that's a real.
I will do it. You know what? It's settled. I'm gonna put up a poll later this week, and I'm predicting right now on the podcast that the winner is going to get 55%. All right, last one. And I'll tell you what, if you're 30 years old or under, you're probably hearing this, you're like, huh? And going to Google, but supermodels. Cindy Crawford versus Kathy Ireland.
I was an ardent Kathy Ireland fan.
Yeah.
Loved her. Like that was like huge teenage crush. Like, early puberty years, Kathy Ireland was, and then she was in Necessary Roughness. And
I was just going to bring that up.
She's the coolest girl ever. Whoa. Like everything about that was just kind of like, whoa, the dream girl's in the movie. That's so cool. And yeah, that's Cindy. I mean, listen, that's an impossible comparison.
I'm telling you, that's the object though. But yeah, man, I thought a Necessary Roughness. I'm going to give a slight edge to Cindy Crawford, though. I was completely obsessed with her Pepsi ads. She was a true superstar. She was a legit supermodel, man. I mean, they both were too. Kathy Ireland was a movie star, or it sort of became one. Well, the movie star might be pushing it, but she was in a movie.
Might have been just that one movie, maybe one other one. I don't know, but yeah, I think Cindy was definitely the bigger star. Like she was like an icon, like model icon, and Kathy Ireland was like, swimsuit issue, Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, like in it all the time, like front cover all the time. But I don't know, it was something, I don't know, forget what I don't know what it was about her, but I was just always like, wow, she's neat.
She is. Oh, there's both beautiful woman, man. So, all right. So now you kind of get an idea of what we're going to be doing here at the end of these shows. That's going to do it for today. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Of course, again, go to notedhockey.substack.com. You know what? Just go to Substack and type in Noted Hockey.
Or just go to notedhockey.com. That'll take you there too.
Oh, you can skip. You can skip.
Yeah.
The Substack? Really?
All
right. Well, regardless, man.
I spend a little money.
Pony up, man. Joe does this show for me every week. You see him all the time on Twitter. Pony up $5, man. Don't be cheap. I
had to make sure Elon didn't censor my website from Twitter. So he was putting warning
that's right
up for links to Substack, and I'm like, I can't have this shit.
That's right. So make sure you check that out. Of course, Maiden State Podcasts. Check Joe's Twitter or Lance Lozowski from the Buffalo News. They get together and they do their shows whenever their schedule allows them to. So make sure you look out for that. And of course, Joe's work on the Bleacher Report as well. Thanks, buddy, man. And you also, like I said, when we were doing our Sabres stuff, he gave me some future ideas as well. So Thanks a lot, buddy. Always good having you on, man.
Always good to be here, Pat, and happy I could help produce some future content for us to handle.